How's it going, everybody? My name's Chris Tendo. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Play The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So, we're about to go fight Ganon. There's a few more things that I want to do just before that. In the next few episodes, there are a few tasks that I think we need to get done. There are some major story events that we need to go look through with the memories. There are bios that need to get done. There is a whole town that needs to get built, and just in general, there's a lot we need to do. So, through these next three episodes, episodes 108, 109, and 110, I think that it's just right that we tie up all the loose ends before we go to Ganon. First, we're going to head to Kilton. The smell. Is it a Lionel or perhaps... Oh, it's just you. Good evening. Can I help you with anything? So, I already went and I exchanged a bunch of Mon, so we can just get right into everything that we need to get into. Your current balance is 7,212 Mon. What monster gear would you like to buy? So we already went over a monster extract a while ago, and just going over everything that Kilton has. First, I'm just gonna say this right now. Kilton gets more items the more divine beasts you save. I'm just gonna say that flat out right now. The wooden mop is a joke weapon. I don't even know why he sells it. It has nothing to do with monsters. The spring-loaded hammer is a joke weapon in a different sense. This thing sends enemies flying while doing minimal damage. I kinda wanna see if I can go fight Ganon with this thing, but we're gonna get to that when we get to that. The Bokoblin mask is a mask that you can wear to essentially make yourself invisible to all types of moblins. Not moblins, Bokoblins, sorry. I was looking at the Moblin mask when I read that. Not sure if it works in the stall variant, however. I have to do some testing on that. Moblin mask is the exact same thing for moblins. A little more useful, if you ask me, because moblins hit very hard. The Zalfos mask, same thing. Oh, I don't like that description. It's designed to replicate the unique tongue and horn of a Lizal. Oh, I don't like that he specified that. And perhaps the most useful of all the masks that Kilton sells, the Lionel mask. Kilton's handmade Lionel headgear. It's so well crafted it can deceive a real Lionel. For a short time, I'll say. Yeah, it even says right here, equip it to blend in with Lionels, but don't linger too long. Those beasts are smart. Next up is the monster bridle and monster saddle. I have never actually gotten these, so I'm not sure what they do. My best guess is that it keeps your horse safe from monsters. Yeah, I mean, what else could it really do? Next up, I mentioned this in a previous episode, and I know I was probably getting so much headache in the process of trying to figure out why I was missing an armor piece, but this is the Dark Link outfit. This headgear is the product of Kilton's monster research. He crafted it with the monster born in the shadows in mind. The eyes glow an eerie red in the dark. This is obviously a reference to two different Zelda games. Well, maybe more, but two that we all know of. Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. He is the final trial before you can get the Triforce, I believe, in the, well, second game in the series. And it is also Dark Link that you fight in Ocarina of Time. I think this is more so trying to look like the Dark Link from Ocarina of Time, given the red eye, worn by a legendary hero. Like, even just the outfit kind of looks like the Ocarina of Time attire, so I think that's what they were really trying to go for here. But what this thing will do is it'll make you invisible to monsters, and it'll give you a night speed bonus. Unfortunately, it is non-upgradable, so it is a purely stealth-esque gear. And I will, of course, be picking it up to show you. And no, it's not getting a bio because it doesn't deserve one. If it can't be upgraded, I don't feel like it really should have a bio. I did the same thing for the Gerudo stuff, so, I mean, why is this getting special treatment just because it looks goth as heck? As you can see, when Link wears the different masks, he takes sort of the pose of all the monsters. It's extra twitchy when he wears the Lizalfos mask. and gets extra regal when he wears the Lionel mask. I'm not gonna show off every type of enemy because, I mean, they're not gonna react much, but I will show off near this Bokoblin camp. As you can see, the Bokoblins and other enemies will almost get a kick out of you wearing this mask. They won't know it's Link, but because of your pose, I suppose, they are fooled, and you can, for a lot of them, sneak up. Okay, maybe not sneak up, but you can easily get in here with a charge attack and kill them all. Mask is best used to take care of those guardian ones that are kind of patrolling with the horns. Those guys are always a pain. Ah, so satisfying. Lionels, as previously stated, are not as easily fooled, however. Up here is a... crap. Silvermane Lionel. So let's sort of demonstrate how this works. Link wearing the mask. Must get spotted. Come on, Lionel. Don't be stupid. And as you'll see, he isn't immediately attacking us. We try to get a little closer. Seems almost as if we're friends. Yeah, he thinks it's funny. Yeah, I don't think he thinks it's funny anymore. Yep, okay, now he's going to attack us. After his little giggle, that's when the fight begins. I don't like this mask. All right, let's get out of here. Now, I want to get to the bulk of this episode. Throughout our travels, we have come across a lot of strangely named places. I could probably put together a compilation of all the shrine names I've tried to pronounce, but those are not what we're going to be talking about today. What we're going to be talking about are the areas in the map that are named or are obvious references to previous Zelda games. There are upwards of 80 of these things that I have found, heard about, any sort of combination. I have found a lot of them, not all of them. Just gonna make that clear right now. And where we're gonna start is at the Great Plateau in the Temple of Time. Now, the Temple of Time, I really don't think I need to say this, was first introduced in Ocarina of Time and has made its appearance in many, many Zelda games since. Another thing that I would like to point out is that when you're in the Temple of Time, unlike most of Hyrule, a musical piece plays. This is not just some random ambient piece. This is the Temple of Time's theme. It's a little hard to hear, so I will let you guys listen to it. I'll boost the audio, and I'll cut to when it really sounds like the Temple of Time. It's very, very difficult to make out, but it's there. Next, I'm only going to show it on the map because I don't feel like climbing the mountain, is Mount Hylia. This is a reference to the goddess that is mentioned throughout many, many Zelda games, whose powers are passed down through the royal blood. So, the Triforce, essentially. All the powers that Link has throughout the series, you can thank to Hylia. And luckily, that's it. That's all the references on the Great Plateau. Next, we're going to be going to Central Hyrule. The first and most obvious reference is this is Hyrule Field. Hyrule Field has made its appearance in, most prominently, Ocarina of Time, Minish Cap, and Twilight Princess. It's mostly just the hub of the world. Next up, we're going to be talking about the ranch ruins. This is a reference to Lon Lon Ranch in Ocarina of Time. It has seen better days. Next, I'm going to be talking about the Romani Plains. Now, not every single area I'm going to be going to, because if it's just a big open forest, why bother? But this is a reference to, yet again, Ocarina of Time's Romani, who lived in Lon Lon Ranch. I believe I'm getting that correct. Again, if I have any of these details wrong, I'll put it on screen. Next up, I actually lost the placement of where they are, so it's going to be a little weird telling you about a reference that I can't find, but there are bridges and other areas in the game that are named after Ribbenack, Orsed, Helmhead, and Karak, if I believe I'm pronouncing those correctly, along with Manhandla, Dig Dog, and this last one I can't pronounce, Aquaimi? They're all bosses from Zelda 2 and Zelda 1 in that order. The Breach of Demise is next on our list, and aside from this being a set piece that is just crazy creepy, it is also a reference to the antagonist of Skyward Sword. His name was, as you might already know, Demise. And he was the one who put the curse on the whole Zelda timeline, saying stuff like, I will curse you and your descendants for 1,000 years, and you will never be rid of Ganon. Stuff like that. In the Hyrule Ridge region, we're going to be looking at Mount Roam, well, I just spoiled what the reference is, referencing King Roam, the king that is actually the king of Breath of the Wild. Directly to the west of the central Hyrule Tower is Mount Daphnis, or Daphnes, depending on how you want to say it. This is a reference to Wind Waker's King of Red Lions, your trusty boat. However, spoiler territory here for anyone who has not played the game, when you resurrect him as the true king of whatever he is, you'll find out that he was once the king of Hyrule, and his full name is King Daphnis no Hansen Hyrule. Right next to that is Wind Vane Meadow. This is a reference to the wind vanes that would use to teleport and save in Link to the Past. Slightly to the north of all of those is Mount Gustaf. Gustaf is the former king of Hyrule that you learn about in the Minish Cap. And lastly, for Central Hyrule, we have Mabe Prairie. Mabe is the starting town in Link's Awakening. We're going to be moving over to the Hyrule Ridge region next up, and I know we already visited here once, but my notes were a little out of order, so please forgive me. This place only has a few references that I should mention. First of all, Mount Rome and the Breach of Demise, but we have the Ceres Scablins. And Ceres is the name of one of the sages, specifically the blue sage, that you find in A Link Between Worlds, and I believe A Link to the Past as well. I think that the sages were fairly similar between the two of them. For the Hyrule Ridge region, there is obviously one more big ol' reference to not a previous Zelda game, but a big thing. And I will be saving that for the end of this episode. Just know I have acknowledged it. The Gerudo Highlands and the Gerudo Desert are next up. Only a few references to note of here. One of the biggest references in the game is actually right under our feet. This is Spectacle Rock. The reason why this is one of the biggest references of the game is because one of the most famous pieces of Zelda art has Spectacle Rock in it. I'll be putting the piece of art on screen right now. It was the most prominent piece of artwork that came with Zelda 1 back in the day, and Spectacle Rock is, funny enough, where Divine Beast Von Naboris decides to hang out. Spectacle Rock has been seen in many other Zelda games, but I think Zelda 1 is the one that is most known for. And the final reference that I could find in the whole deserty area is right here, Yarna Valley. This is a reference to a desert that you can enter in Link's Awakening. Next up, we find ourselves in the beautiful Faron grasslands. First, the reference I want to talk about is the name itself, Faron. We find the green dragon, Farosh, sort of patrolling this whole area. And this whole area down here, I consider the Faron grasslands, even though we have Necluda over here, but it goes all the way to like Lanayru, if you ask me. Farosh, the green dragon, is a reference to the dragon, well, the whole region is a reference to the dragon Faron that you find in Skyward Sword. And he is the dragon of water. As you can see with this whole oceany area, it's fitting. If you go deeper into the more jungly areas, you will find yourself at Lake Floria. Lake Floria is the name of a lake in Skyward Sword. Directly to the southwest of Floria Lake, you're gonna find yourself at Martha's Landing. And this one's actually another reference to Link's Awakening, because Martha is the name of the mermaid that you can encounter in that game. Possibly the biggest reference in the entire region, and maybe one of even the biggest references in the entire game, Bible, is over here on Eventide Island. Now, the area where the shrine appears is called Koholint Rock. This is a reference to the entire game of Link's Awakening. You take place on Koholint Island in that game, and there's even more that goes into this. People have speculated that because of the weird events that take place on this island and this island alone, that being when you get here, you're stripped of all of your gear by some mystical force, and then you're forced to do these challenges in order to do some magical thing on the top of the island. Maybe Link dreamed up this whole Eventide Island shrine, and in reality, the shrine was just always here. That is much like the events that happens in Link's Awakening, and people even speculate that that game isn't a dream and that Koholint Island and the Windfish are real, possibly just wiping Link's memory of his existence. Theories, but I do enjoy that Koholint Rock is a nice little reference to that. And on the exact same island, Taranbo Beach. This is a reference to the beach that you actually land on in Link's Awakening. So, with the beach and Koholint Rock, I don't see any reason why this is not a reference to Link's Awakening. Next, because I want to do things in the order of my notes, we're going to be going all the way north to Hebra. Now, the only reference that I could really find here that was worth noting was Hebra Mountains. This is supposedly a reference to A Link to the Past. Now, look at the placement of both Death Mountain in the Elden region and Hebra Mountain. Even though Hebra Mountain is supposed to be where Elden is in Link to the Past, this is supposedly a reference to Death Mountain in the Dark World. It's a little far-fetched, but the fact that it's snowy and it's directly across from Death Mountain, it's, like I said, it's a bit of a stretch, but I like the idea that they're referencing even the Dark World. And this is even further stated because what is all around the Dark World are these giant chasms. Giant chasms that just so happen to separate only this side of the map. And what side of the map is it? The Hebra Mountains. Coincidence? Maybe. Cool little nod? Possibly. Is it going in the video? You bet your butt it is. Next up, we're going to be taking a trip to the Necluda region, a region that almost everybody goes straight to when they play the game. First, we're going to talk about this whole area's naming scheme. Ruto Precipice, Ruto Lake, Ruto Mountain. I mean, who is this Ruto? Well, I'll tell you. Princess Ruto of Ocarina of Time is possibly one of the most well-known Zoras throughout the whole series. She's one of the 7 sages in the game, and was first seen, not in Ocarina of Time, but in Legend of Zelda 2, Adventure of Link, as one of the town names. You're gonna be hearing that a lot, because a lot of the names of the sages from Ocarina of Time, with the exception of one, were used as town names in Zelda 2. I don't know if they went back to Zelda 2 or if this was always a thing, but still, it's a really, really neat nod. Next up is Oren Bridge, and this is a reference to the Zora Queen of A Link Between Worlds, Queen Oren. Next up, we have Tall Tall Peak, sitting here on the map. And Tall Tall Peak is a reference to Tall Tall Mountain / Tall Tall Heights in Link's Awakening. This is the area where the Windfish egg actually sits upon. All the way on the east side of Hyrule, you are going to find Spool Bite. Now, Spool Swamp, which this is referencing, is a swamp that you go in the Oracle games, specifically Oracle of Seasons. Tebal Woods is a reference to, well, the Tebal Woods, which is a fairly spooky area that you can come across in the Link's Awakening games, much like Tall Tall Peak. Directly to the southwest of Kakariko Village, you're going to find Sahasra Slope. This is a reference to A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. They're kind of the same at this point. Wise Wizard Sahasra Sala. I never know how to pronounce that. This is obviously a shortened version of the name, but still a reference nonetheless. You can even find him in Kakariko Village. Right next to Kakariko Village, on the opposite side to the east, you'll find Piri Plateau and Benoru's Stand. And these are a reference to Ocarina of Time. Benoru is a scarecrow near Lake Hylia that gives you the Scarecrow song. The other one, Piri, is another scarecrow who travels around the world. Directly to the south of Kakariko Village, we're just really getting all of our Kakariko in today. These are the Pillars of Levia. And the Pillars of Levia are possibly named after the great spirits of the sky, the Leviyas, in Skyward Sword. These are giant whales that help Link throughout his adventure. To the southwest of the Yarin Shrine is Tuft Mountain. Now, King Tuft was actually the ruler of, I know nobody's gonna remember this game, Triforce Heroes. He was the ruler of the region of Hitopia, not Hyrule, and I can completely understand why nobody references this game that much because it wasn't really that good of a game, if you ask me. Sorry, it's controversial. I didn't like it all that much. Connected to Kakariko Bridge is the Lake Celia reference, and this is a reference to the fairy that you actually meet in the Phantom Hourglass. For the life of me, I cannot find where this next one is, but this next one is Nabi Lake. This is a bit of a stretch, but it is supposed to be a reference to Ocarina of Time's fairy companion, Navi. Navi, it's sort of similar, but you can see why it's a bit of a stretch. Connecting West Necluda and Central Hyrule is Olin Bridge, and Olin in Skyward Sword is a man who actually teaches Link about Lofwings. Directly to the north of that is Horwell Bridge, yet another Skyward Sword Loftwing instructor. Next to that is Aegis Bridge, who is a resident in Skyward Sword Skyloft. He teaches swordmanship lessons. Weird choices, but I mean, gotta give love where you can, I suppose, for that game, because the community sure as heck won't. Right in the center of that island is Batria Lake, and just to finish off all the Skyward Sword references, Batria is the name of the demon monster that you would give gratitude crystals to. In Skyward Sword, of course. Somewhere in the region, you're going to find a location called Tarm Point. And this is actually a reference to, yet again, Oracle of Seasons, Tarm Ruins. So strange with all the Oracle references, given how little love the Nintendo likes to give the Oracle games. Which, fun fact, I actually just bought both Oracle games on eBay, so look out for something with those in the future. Oh, here's Tarm Point right here on the map. Ooh, and directly to the north of it was actually the next reference I had to get. This is the Lodrum Headlands, and this is a reference to, again, the Oracle of Seasons. This is the world name this is a reference rather to the world name Holodrum. Brignana Plain is a reference to La Brignana, which is actually the whole world that you travel through in Oracle of Ages, not Oracle of Seasons this time. And right next to all of that is Samasa Plains, which Samasa Desert is found in the Oracle of Seasons. Okay, we're getting close to done here. Next, we're going up to the Akkala and Lanayru-esque regions. First, we're going to go to Tingel, Ankel, Nukkel, and Davdi Islands. This is a big ol' reference. This is a reference to Tingle, the map salesman in many Zelda games, along with his brothers Ankle, Knuckle, and David. They took the last 2 letters and swapped them. There are many areas throughout the series where you can find Tingle and his brothers. Most notably, you can find him in The Wind Waker. You will only find him with 2 of his brothers, if I recall correctly, and he has sort of enslaved them for labor. However, Tingle will help you find the Triforce by transcribing Triforce map things. It's a whole long explanation, but he is crucial for you beating that game. You can also find them in Four Swords Adventure. Now, they are nothing more than little flashy animations that get you between minigames, but just thought I would mention that. They're also found in the Minish Cap as part of a quest to get the magical boomerang item, where each part of the quest you meet up with another one of Tingle's brothers. Next up is Malin Bay, found at the big spirally thing all the way in the Akkala region. And Malin Bay is sort of a reference to Marin. And Marin is a young girl who actually wakes up Link on Taranbo Beach at the very start of Link's Awakening. In many localizations, the letter L and R are often switched, sometimes for comedic results. This might be a reference to what that is. Canalet Ridge, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, is a reference to Canalet's Castle, the former home of Prince Richard that you can find in Link's Awakening. Right beneath Skull Lake, you're going to find Rock Woods, which, yet again, is a reference to Link's Awakening. This is a reference to the Rock Feather item, an item that actually allowed Link to hop, something that we desperately needed him to do. It kind of made way for some very surreal Mario-esque experiences throughout that game, but nonetheless is a pretty cool item. Right beneath the Great Fairy Fountain in the region, we have Kepora Pass. This is a reference to the infamous owl guide, Kepora Gabora. And directly south of that, we have our final reference for the region, Lord help me for trying to pronounce this. Ukuku Plains. I think I got it that time. This is a reference to Ukuku Prairie in Link's Awakening. Now for the Zora's Domain / Lanayru region. First, we are going to go to Toto Lake, which in Majora's Mask, he is the name of the manager of the Indigogos. I believe it's supposed to be pronounced Indigogos, because like, haha, musical reference, and they're a band that you can find, but it's a band of Zoras that you find in Majora's Mask, and this is a reference to their manager, Toto. Next to that, we have Mikau and Lulu Lake. To anyone who's played Majora's Mask, this is going to hit you right in the feels. Mikau is sadly the Zora that you meet on the beach who gives his life so that way we can have our mask. Lulu was supposedly his girlfriend, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I played Majora's Mask. Who you will find back in the Zora's home. Lulu is even the female singer of the Indigogos. Next up is sort of a double reference. We have Rutala Dam, and somewhere in here, we have Rallis Pond. Now, these are a reference to Twilight Princess's Zora Queen, Rutella, not Rutala. This is not a direct reference, but the spelling is close enough if you ask me. This reference is further emphasized because Rallis is Rutala's son in the same game. So Rutala, Rutella, and then Rallis, her son, both being in the Zora area, even though they are prominent Zora figures in Twilight Princess, if you ask me, it's a very, very obvious reference. Next, we have directly south of the East Reservoir Lake, we have Ja Abu Ridge. This is a reference to the giant fish that you meet in, again, Ocarina of Time, the Great Jabu Jabu. Something I actually should have brought up a lot sooner was Lanayru is yet another reference to one of the dragons that you meet in Skyward Sword. This one is the Dragon of Lightning. Horon Lagoon is a reference to the starting village in the Oracle of Seasons game. I have not played it, but I'm going to assume it's called Horon Village. The Gopanga Island and Gopanga Village ruins are a reference to the Gopanga Swamp in Link's Awakening. And to finish off the Laniwa region, we are going to stay next to Gopanga Village and ruins and island, because we have the Merkei, Linebeck, Zauz, Banin, and Moldy Islands, and these are all references to the Phantom Hourglass. Merkei Island is where you wake up in the game. Linebeck is the captain of the SS Linebeck steamboat. Everybody should know him. He's a great guy. And Zauz, I can't pronounce that for the life of me, helps Link forge the Phantom Sword to take on the game's antagonist, Bellum. Banin and Moldly Islands are simply islands that you visit throughout the game. We are almost done, I promise. Then we're gonna get on to some more interesting things in this video. I know this isn't the most beautiful thing to look at. We are moving north to the Eldin region. First, we're gonna wanna look at Durania Lake. This is a reference to the Goron chief and one of the sages in Ocarina of Time. His image is also carved into the cliff overlooking Goron City. To the very north of Death Mountain, we have Lake Darman. This is a reference to Darmani, the deceased Goron chief that you find in Majora's Mask. Throughout the Gerudo's whole storyline, you end up having to break down the Bridge of Eldin. The Bridge of Eldin actually has a lot of significance throughout the Zelda history. The Bridge of Eldin is the famous bridge that you find in Twilight Princess north of Kakariko Village. It has also made its home in the Smash Bros. Series, being one of the most popular maps to play in that series. Making your way up the mountain, you're going to encounter Gortram Cliff. Gortram ran the Lanayru Shipyard's minecart roller coaster minigame in Skyward Sword. What a fun Goron. Down in the hot springs, which a lot of people typically rest in after getting their butt kicked by that guardian, is Garo Pond. Garo Pond is actually a reference to Don Garo, a frog hat wearing Goron in Majora's Mask. Garo, fun fact, is actually the onomatopoeia for the sound a frog makes in Japanese. To finish off our trio of dragons, I can say that the Eldin region is a reference to Eldin, the dragon of fire in Skyward Sword. Gorko Lake, where you can find a quite menacing Talus battle, is a reference to the Goron you encounter many times throughout Skyward Sword, the Goron named Gorko. Gorko, my bad, not two C's. Next to that, we have Darb Pond, and this is a guile-haired Goron that you can find in Twilight Princess. Quite the fashion sense, I should say. And to finish off our Eldin region, we are going to go to Pico Pond, just to the southwest of the Eldin Canyon. Pico are a small race that you encounter in the Minish Cap who help Link throughout his adventure. Cute little buggers. Our final area of references is going to be the Great Hyrule Forest. Now, I'm just going to go over real quick. We did this region, did this, all the way down to Faron, Central. Yep, Great Hyrule Forest. Starting in the Great Hyrule Forest, we have Lake Saria. This is a reference to the little girl and also a sage in Ocarina of Time. The little Kokiri girl, I should mention, not just a random girl. She actually is the one who gives Link the fairy ocarina and has her own ocarina song. Directly to the opposite side, we have Mido Swamp. Mido is the name of the little Kokiri boy who actually bullies Link back in Ocarina of Time. Now, little reference here. Mido is a name also seen in the adventure of Link as a town name. The only town not named later as a sage in Ocarina of Time. All sages but Impa are also town names in Zelda 2. Outside of the forest, we have Makar Bay, and Makar is the most famous Korok, if you ask me, and is the Sage of Wind found in not Majora's Mask, the Wind Waker. Directly to the south of that, we have the Elma Knolls. Now, this is not a Zelda reference. This is actually a Xenoblade reference. The character Elma in the Xenoblade series is a fairly popular character, but the reason why this is referenced is because Monolith Soft, that's how you say the studio's name, my bad, aided in the development of both Breath of the Wild and the Xenoblade series. So, Elma. On the way to the Great Hyrule Forest, you are actually going to go through the Minchi Woods. Changing around the letters, this is obviously a reference to the Minish Cap series. Not series, game. What am I talking about? Although I wish there was more Minish Cap games. Next to the military training camp and Minchi Woods, directly south of the Kokiri Forest, we have the Raru Hillside and Settlement Ruins. This is a reference to one of the sages, and again, a town name in Ocarina of Time, Sage Raru. All throughout this region, you are also going to find names of areas that might sound familiar. I will just use this as an example. The Irch Plain is a reference to the name of a Korok that you can find in the Wind Waker. There are a few more, like the Drena Highlands and the Aldor Foothills, but Oh, Aldor Foothills is actually right here. What am I talking about? But there are a few more that you can find. Now that does it for all the map references, but we have a few more references to go before I finish off this first bonus episode. I know it's a long one. Bear with me. Here in Kakariko Village, if you listen carefully, you can hear the classic Kakariko Village theme.
Shiva's grace is ready.
Around most stables, I'm using the wetland stable for this example, you can actually hear Epona's theme. In Zora's Domain, you will hear the traditional music that you hear in most Zora domains throughout the series. One of my personal favorite references is Rito Village's theme is actually a slowed down, almost different take on the Dragon Roost Island theme that is heard in, well, Dragon Roost Island in Wind Waker. Take a listen, it's one of my favorite themes in the game. Sadly, I cannot show off this musical reference, but during the Great Deku Tree's cutscenes, you can actually hear the classic Kokiri Forest theme from Ocarina of Time being briefly played in the background. In the mines of the Death Mountain region, if you listen carefully, you can actually hear the Zelda 1 dungeon theme. I tried finding exactly where the mines were, but I had trouble, so I guess this is something for you all to go search and try yourself. Lastly, for our musical references, these take place in Hyrule Castle. First, the Ballad of the Windfish can be heard when you are inside the castle. Secondly, when you're at the castle's exterior, That ominous theme that plays is actually a mixture of 4 different themes. Zelda's Lullaby, Ganon's theme, the fairy theme, and the series' main theme are all sprinkled out. The last thing I want to talk about today involves the Divine Beasts. I've said the Divine Beast names countless times throughout the series, and I've only ever mentioned really one reference. It's because I only knew of one reference. First, the one I knew, Va Ruta, the elephant. Since this is one that is very, very prominent in the Zora area, this is a reference to Ocarina of Time's Zora princess, Princess Ruto. Next up, Va Naboris, the sage that you find in Ocarina of Time, yet again. This is Naboru. Going over to Rudania. This is a reference to... Rather, this is an anagram for a reference. I should probably say that right now. It's an anagram for Darunia, which is the Goron leader in Ocarina of Time. And lastly, this one was a bit harder to get. Vamido. This is possibly a reference to Medley, the name of the Rito girl, sorry, I always say that, who aids Link in these adventures in Wind Waker, and I believe is even the Sage of Wind, if I remember that correctly? All very prominent figures. I just figure I should say all this one last time before putting the series to rest. This last reference is possibly the most important reference that I'm mentioning today. I am currently at Satori Mountain, and this reference has nothing to do with a Zelda game, or even a game for that matter. It is a reference to Nintendo's late great president, Satoru Iwata. On July 11th, 2015, Iwata sadly passed away. Now, Iwata has had quite the history in the gaming industry. His first game-related job was with HAL Laboratories. There, he worked on series such as Kirby and Earthbound. He later became the president of HAL Laboratory in the summer of 1993 via a high recommendation from the company's then current president, Hiroshi Yamauchi. During this time, Iwata brought the company back from the brink of financial collapse and is almost the sole reason HAL Laboratories is even still making games. In the years following, Iwata worked on series like Pokemon and Smash Bros. And eventually became Nintendo's head of corporate planning in 2000. Eventually becoming the president of Nintendo in spring of 2002. Under his leadership, Nintendo produced the Nintendo DS, 3DS, Wii, and to a lesser extent the Wii U. With this, plus numerous excellent business strategies implemented by Iwata, he was named among top 30 CEOs in the world in 2009. Iwata was more than a president or a CEO, however, as over the years, he struck a chord with Nintendo fans alike and became the public face of the company, so to speak. This makes his passing all the harder as, yes, while he did work on games most of us would consider our childhoods, deep down we all knew he was and always has been a gamer just like us. We knew Iwata had as much love for and care for the characters that we played that he did. We felt like the man behind all of our childhoods wasn't just some nameless CEO, but instead a caring, creative, and talented friend, not just to fans, but also to the people he worked with every day. Losing a friend can be hard. Iwata's friends back at Nintendo knew that too, and since he passed before the release of potentially one of his biggest projects ever, Breath of the Wild, they added this mountain topped with beautiful wildlife, lush gardens, blooming trees, and even its own guardian spirit to honor the great man one last time. Rest in peace, Mr. Iwata. You will forever be missed. I think I'm gonna call it here. With that somber note, I would like to thank you all for watching this very lengthy episode. Today we finished going over with Kilton and seeing every item that he has to offer. And we went over every single reference that I could find in the entire game. I know I mentioned that the people that worked on Xenoblade worked on this game, but it's more than just a helpful development team. It is clear in the gameplay that both Xenoblade and this game in particular have a huge emphasis on exploration. Plus, I love all the little winks and nods that all the developers put into this game because, I mean, hey, it gave me content to make this video. Next time, however, it might be something even more lengthy than this one. Next time, we're going to be going over every single bio that I miss throughout the game. Weapons, enemies, armor even. Wait, did I miss any armor? Maybe armor, I'm not sure. And then we're going to get every last memory before we head to Hyrule Castle. It's going to be a long one. But we're almost to the end. See you guys there.